Hi, everybody. It's Sarah. This is an episode I'm calling Reseating Yourself, Breaking the Cycle of Fragility. And this is it's a weird concept. I don't even know if the concept comes through in the title, but this is about when it comes to old relationships, or relationships with people you're very close to, who kind of have like a rhythm or a loop that we can get stuck in with them, where we feel like we're powerless to step out of it. And in basic terms, we take the other person personally. And that kind of catalyzes a chain reaction or a sequence of events. So it's often that people who are very vulnerable take the feelings of others personally, and their feelings can trigger us, which in turn will trigger them. And then it becomes this like unbreakable loop that we go through, and we both feel bummed about it. So if there's any fragility of any kind involved in your makeup as a person, like from childhood, for example, this can be something that causes a lot of suffering, a lot of distance in your adult relationships. And um, I think that's kind of what I'm really making an intervention around, is that process, that like interaction of events. Because it's really about wading through the mud of your ingrained physical response in that situation. Because with focus, with attention, with awareness, there is change that is possible. We just have to really slow down what's happening and figure out the moment we need to change. This idea of reseating yourself is also about restoring faith, resetting your perspective on what is possible for you, especially if you are a person who has like repeated negative thoughts about yourself and your life. So, this episode is also about redirecting uh, after you have what I would call like an old broken record that plays on the tabletop of your brain. A lot of the time, those old broken records are just like they come on, and then it's now you're just following through in your mind, and you're kind of stuck in it. It's like this dance, like a haunted waltz we're doing with this like zombie of our memory, and it just won't let go. And even if you have like a nothing necessarily terrible happening in your life, if we have a what I would call these old broken records that get put on in our brain, they can kind of turn everything in our life cloudy. And by that I mean like their thoughts of like, oh man, I've been really eating badly lately, and oh, why can't I get my shit together, and like I was doing so great and now everything's bad, and who am I to give advice to people? I can't get my life together. Thoughts like that, that would be like an old broken record of, and now everything is bad and I should feel worried. That's like the next chain of events that your body is going to experience. So if you have a predictable set of hopeless thoughts about yourself, or a predictable set of hopeless conversations with a person that you are close to, let's say a partner or a family member, this is an episode for you. And there are three parts: the what, the why, and the how, the tools. Part one, the what. The familiar thought loop or communication sequence that signals, and now things are bad, and now we have no hope, and now we are stuck, whatever it is. So, something that is internal. It might be something like this: I feel empty. Oh no, I'm off track. Everything is wrong. I'm not exercising enough. I'm not doing well because I've been doing XYZ. Or, oh, now everything's going to be bad because this happened. Oh, I can't get it together because of fill in the blank. So those are the old broken record thoughts. A conversation with a loved one might go something like this: Hey, can you do the dishes? I'm so tired tonight. Yeah, I didn't do them because I've been doing 10,000 other things. And I did them yesterday. And also, I did them the day before that. Oh, yeah, I know you've been slammed. I wasn't giving you shit. I was just asking because I'm really tired. I didn't say you were giving me shit. And now both people are distant, hopeless, silent. One might feel hopeless and angry. The other one might feel frustrated and confused, or sad and confused. Either way, it's this comment triggers this comment, which triggers this defensive comment, which triggers this defensive comment. So, in both of those situations, there is sensitivity and overreactivity, I would say. And the goal in the face of both of these things is to remember that an opposite future exists if we can recall that and if we can just bring ourselves back to being grounded. So this is really the goal of being grounded and having the ability to self-regulate in the moment of that emotional response. Which brings me to part two, the why. Well, everything is perspective, everything. Any old emotional loop that gets triggered will be like jumping into a different little tube of like I'm thinking of us like we're all cryogenically frozen entities and then we jump into a new tube and everything looks different and the color of the liquid in our tube is totally different and it's gray. Anyway, too many metaphors. But this emotional loop that gets triggered very much colors and rewrites reality, but it's all perspective at any given time. We're all very driven by energy. And any energy that we have leapt into, we can change it. We just have to remember that's possible. We can jump into a completely different energy and also create a completely different future at any time, including when we're embedded with another person. And that loop is so incredibly like fine-tuned. So, net, a perspective flip is what we are looking for here. Just having a memory that we have agency to act differently at any stage of any of these any of these descriptions I've given you, any of these like conflicts. So, including when you are feeling, oh fuck, it's hopeless. That belief in itself is a label our brain's giving something that is optional. It may not be true at all. Have you ever tried to jump out of that state immediately? Because that's what I'm inviting you to do is like the moment your brain starts to have all those thoughts, just remember, like, wait a minute, that's not true. I have the option to leap back into another channel of thinking and feeling and expectations. That's really what I'm asking you to do. Um, and also the idea of taking others personally, um, that is something that is so common for people who have any kind of unmet needs from childhood, which is basically everybody in the world. Anytime you have an unmet need, I call that our original stage. Like that is the shape of our pain in adult life. And anytime we get an unmet need from like when we're little, it gets triggered, whenever it's like reset, we will return to the same feeling, the same emotional response at that age, like whenever you didn't get what you needed. My emotional unmet need, my original stage is, but you can't be mad at me. You can't not love me. You can't be upset. You can't, I was trying so hard. I'm being so good. Like that's the feeling. You can't possibly be upset at me. I'm trying so hard. So the emotional feeling is, I need to just tell you the why I'm so good, because then you won't be mad anymore. And so what it leads to is a behavior of constantly clarifying, constantly saying, no, 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 but I was doing blank. But you can't be back because I was doing blank. And this is the need in me to be seen and understood that was created by my in that time in childhood. It was created by my inability to accept that somebody else was not capable or was going through their own shit. And I would say that's like one of the more common experiences for kids is like they take it upon themselves to make sense of all of the really overwhelming complex issues that adults go through. So kids experience it as this person doesn't love me enough. Why don't you love me enough? And then they try and control the spigot of love. So defensiveness in adulthood is incredibly common if you were emotionally wounded, or there was a sense of lack, like there was an unmet need in childhood. So if you would say you are a person who is sensitive and defensive, I'm guessing it came from a source that's similar, an unmet need from childhood. And I would also call out that defensiveness doesn't feel good when you experience it. And it also is incredibly toxic to the people on the receiving end. It is painful. So it's like it's created it in itself a loop, a developmental loop. Because like as a person on the receiving end of defensiveness, you feel invisible and you feel like your needs don't matter, your feelings don't matter, that you do not exist. So all of that is to say there's like a very complex web of old patterns that get triggered that all amount to both people feeling um, like they weren't seen or weren't heard. So, taking other people personally is the thing I'm focusing on and subscribing to that belief when it's occurring. So like if you take someone's distance personally, for example, or their depression personally, they will in turn feel like they don't matter. They will feel like they have no person to support them, like that their needs are not important to you. So that's kind of like what I mean by a sequence. Um, you take the feelings of another person personally, then they feel distant and hopeless, and then you feel increasingly like you're misunderstood. Both were not intended. So if that sounds familiar, I just want you to become aware of first the existence of the sequence in your life and know that you being able to see it from outside of it is proof that you have agency to change it. A lot of the change we will make in this particular situation will feel like it doesn't fit, will feel inauthentic, but that is how we create change. We have to act like somebody else. We have to practice acting like somebody else that we are not yet. And we can play act. It's like making believe and moving our body through the actions as if we're pretending. And eventually we see how well it works and it becomes us. It becomes authentically ours. And it's no longer an artificial thing, it's more a natural thing. But the creation of new muscle memory at first has to be very forced. And then a couple times in, it becomes you teach yourself out of the old trigger. It just takes practice and repetition. And being okay with the discomfort, expecting the discomfort and moving through it anyway. I I once had a client that said they would like save up all of their hurts in their relationship and like all of their grievances, and then they would like really like want to go through all of them with their partner and like talk through all of them. And I remember being like, well, you don't have to do all that. Like, I don't think that's necessarily very helpful. And they were like, what? Then don't you think that the problems don't get solved? And I said, no, I think you can show someone more that creates change in them faster if you stay completely out of issues. Like if you are the one that is neutral and consistent, then they are the ones that just are left to be obviously in whatever issue they have. So it's like you just create a mirror by not engaging with the loop of the fight and of the thing that they didn't do that they were supposed to do. It's like you rise above it. So that's just, I mean, maybe not true in all situations, but I just want to say, like, maybe your hurt and pain and in this conflict or loop of conflicts, maybe your pain and involvement is optional. Maybe it's not for you at all. Maybe this is not a loop that you have to be a part of at all. Maybe you are over it. Maybe you are bigger than it. And maybe you have been for a really long time. So I would say, like, next time, try and skip it. See if you can just isolate that person in whatever they're experiencing, see it as theirs and not yours at all, not about you at all. Which brings me to part three, the how, the tools. But first, a brief word from our sponsors. And I just want to say, for whatever it's worth, I actually get to have a say in my sponsors and I choose things I like. And for whatever that's worth, I have lots of products that I continue to use after my sponsorship with them is done because I actually really like the products. So, with that, a word from our sponsors. Okay, the tools. First tool is called find the flip. So as soon as I recognize there is some sort of dooming and glooming broken record that goes on in my brain, the first thing I do now is I remind myself like, oh, that's an illusion. Everything is, everything is exactly as it was. Everything is okay. Trust, trust, trust. That is the meditation I want to offer you. Trust. Come back home to the reality that all things are possible and all eventual outcomes are possible, and just reset your brain to expect something totally different and new and positive to come forth in your life. I've I can see that there will be like a current if you are used to embellishing pain or telling yourself a sob story, or if there is like some sort of addiction to those emotions, like if you've been practicing feeling um, victimized by a situation in your life for a long period of time, it will feel really attractive to just continue in that chain of thinking and feeling, but it's not necessary. And at the very beginning of the thought is when I want you to recognize I don't have to follow that. I can actually reset to something different, higher, that is not pain, that is not worry, sorrow, woe. First things first, how can I come back into a memory of neutrality, but also hope, optimism, balance? What's an action that you can take that will help you recall that state of being? Usually, the best way to make yourself feel better in the moment you have that woe thought is any action in service of something that serves your health, your balance, your sanity, your empowerment. There is this kind of weird addiction that people have, like it's like a childlike addiction to feeling sad, worried, or valid in our sense of not okayness. And that feeling is an illusion because we obviously don't want to feel those things. It's not a positive thing to feel those things. And it catalyzes more of those feelings. So, like the moment you recognize, oh shit, I'm jumping on that pain train, how do you redirect and flip to awareness that you are fine? Everything is fine. You have to just get back into the mindset, the chain of thoughts that is self care, positive actions. All right, the next tool, the new chain. As I mentioned in the relationship situation, there is like that sequence of events when you take another person personally, and it can happen so quickly. It's like it's almost, you know, a musical rhythm, and it can be like very hard to step out of it. You might be trying to plan ahead of time, like, I don't want to fall into the pattern again. How am I going to jump out of the pattern when it happens? And then you still fall into it. So I wanted to, this tool is for you to just first of all become aware of what that chain is in your particular situation. What is the um what is the tempo? What's the first thing that happens? What's the next thing that happens? What is the thing that catalyzes you feeling bad? What is the thing that catalyzes them feeling bad? And then what is the end of it? Just write it down as if it's like a little story. Now that you have that, I want you to watch the next occurrence of said chain. And the moment that you recognize the trigger is happening in you, the feeling of worry, of desperation, of hurt, whatever it is that's triggered, whatever your pain stage that's triggered, I want you to beforehand plan out an alternate person or action you will take. And this is key. This is really the core of the change. The moment that you are in the worry fear moment, I'm going to ask you to instead of living in that response, override it. And just like you're in the room with a hostage or a person that's taking you hostage, there's a hostage takeover. It's very tense. The guns everywhere, and you just have to keep talking like everything's okay. That's what I want you to try to do. The moment that the trigger's happening, you're going to be derailing into a new, more confident, okay person that is not perturbed that is not having the same response. You can pick any person that you want to be, but I want you to pick a different person to embody energetically and live as. So we're going to move through it. I think of it as like you're wading through mud and everything's okay. You're going to talk like everything's fine. You're going to ask that person questions. You're going to just be receptive. And even though you're feeling in your gut terrible and you're feeling hurt, you're feeling worried, longing, whatever the feeling is, we're acting despite that thing. And the reason that I'm throwing out just moving through it is on the other side of that action is a new outcome. There's a new set of information that you will receive because you're witnessing them in a new moment. And you're going to be able to see, oh, they're in a bad place right now. Or, oh, they're just really tired. Or, oh, they're in this place and like grumpy, whatever it is. It's like we're getting this, like, instead of this thing being so enmeshed and so interconnected, we've moved out of that pattern and past it. And now we look back and we're like, oh, it's them. They're in a thing. It has nothing to do with me. It's like just giving us a new vantage point on an old loop. So that is my experiment I want to offer you. It's just like you're going to see that this person is not where your childhood brain was emotionally assuming they were. It's not about you at all. Next tool, a new ending. So this is for those who take people personally, like in the moment you are in that conflict, that loop. Let's say that person is like legit dangerous to you. Like that is true of a lot of like really, really enmeshed old childhood relationships where there's been a lot of dysfunction. If you're in therapy and you're trying to get healthy and you are in an old relationship, it can be like very counterproductive to have conversations with those people. In a lot of situations, you really have to cut out the relationship entirely until you heal all the way, which is painful, I know. But if you are in a situation where you're having a really predictable loop with a person, that person is very toxic, they're triggering you, and you are acting as, differently as you possibly can, they are still very toxic. The best thing for you to do in that situation is take an alternate path. And by that, I mean, um, detach with love. Detach with love. We exit peacefully the situation. There's nothing that can, the best way to do it is without them knowing at all. So, oh, I have to my phone's ringing. I gotta go. Or, oh my gosh, I forgot I'm late. Get out of the situation, deflect, 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 and then detach with love. And by that, I mean no contact. Do not engage again on the topic and just completely separate their input into your brain altogether. And the best way to do that, because I know it will cause immense amounts of guilt in you, send them love. Send them love energetically in your mind's eye. There's a prayer I recommend for this in particular. I'm sorry. Just imagine them. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And just send them love and send them like well wishes. And know that that's really the only thing you can do in situations where the rhythm is so ingrained. It cannot be broken apart. It cannot be altered because like in many situations they can't even hear you. It's like it's so old and it's so ingrained they can't see you, they can't hear you. All they're doing is kind of replaying the old record. Okay. Next tool, reduce, reduce, and reduce. When it comes to if you are feeling like in those dooming and glooming thoughts, like the broken records are going on your brain and you're feeling anxious, worried, less than, like hopeless, put upon, like I was doing great and now I'm not, I can't get it back together, whatever it is. Oh, I would say like it is so common. It is so common right now for people to feel like that. And a huge reason is the amount of fractured focus that we have, the amount of blood glucose that is drained from us because of how many ways we have to split our attention and how much information we take in. It's way, 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 way too much. It's just not healthy. So let's reduce, reduce, reduce. Less input, less distraction, less multitasking, less information, less stimuli, less content. And I am a firm believer that the amount of information we ingest today has a very detrimental effect on our baseline for functioning, our sanity, our anxiety, our happiness, our ability to self-regulate. You just should not have an extensive amount of information about things that you have no power to affect. If you are high functioning and super happy and you can do that, more power to you. But in general, if you're noticing symptoms, like we've really got to reduce that information that's coming into your brain. It's way too much. And if you're noticing that you are not feeling grounded, you're not feeling calm and peaceful, and that you are craving junk food, you're craving sugars, you're craving stimuli, something to fill the hole, something to fill the void, I would say that is a very clear sign that you have a reduction in your blood glucose. I'm guessing from multitasking and or having to maintain self-control for a long period of time when you feel the opposite. Like that is a great drain of our reservoir for just feeling like a cohesive human being. I feel like a lot of people right now feel overcome and like it's just too much. And for whatever it's worth, kids, if you have kids and you're trying to like raise them and protect them, kids often manifest anxiety and feelings of like it's too much. They feel out of control. And we might feel like we're trying to help protect them from that thing. Like we might feel like, oh, I'm not protecting them enough, whatever it is. I will say if you can reduce the amount that they're taking in helpful, but also know that now is the age when we need to learn how to deal with anxiety. And if we don't go through those experiences as kids, if we don't have experiences of anxiety as kids, it is manifests in adulthood as an aversion to decision making and an inability to have agency and take risks. So it's like you won't trust yourself as an adult. So know that like within a safe, healthy range, anxiety is okay. Anxiety is okay for our kids to move through. And absolutely, we want to support them as they move through it. But if you are in this situation, as much as you can reduce and take off your plate, take out of your brain, do so. And first things first, how can I bring my body back to grounding? How can I simplify my focus in this moment right now? All right, next tool. Everyone can move through the house. This is related to anxiety. I think we today have like a very intense or charged narrative around what I would call human feelings. Like, you know, we are okay to move through really intense feelings and we will move through really intense feelings and they're normal. Like one of my favorite stories I heard from Pima Chodron, forgot which album it was on. She was talking about, I think she was babysitting her niece for like a weekend, and the niece was asking her repeatedly for something, and like it was like the second day of being with the niece, and then finally she was like, "Snap it." She like snapped at the niece, who's a child. And I just fucking love that story because I was like, oh, that makes me so happy because it made me really understand how we're not so far away from monks. Pema Chodron is a very famous meditation teacher. We're not so far away from monks. If you left an infant with a group of monks, there would be peril, there would be stress. It's not that you're broken and wrong, it's that these things in life are actually stressful. They can be anxiety inducing. That is okay, that is normal. It is part of life. And my main point is we don't have to attach meaning and importance and a longer story to any feelings we have. Like sometimes they just move through the house like ghosts. They have nothing to tell us. They don't have more meaning than just their existence. They move through and then they're gone. As soon as we start to attach meaning, we are now in like a big broken record dance with a zombie. It's like it's gonna last. We create a narrative around it. We connect it to something long time ago. We connect it to this failure in our present day life. The story is optional. Just allow the thing to exist. It's just gonna float through and it's fine. And I just want to remind you that the thinking about the thing is the biggest vice. That is the most, I would say, like painful part of our life experience. It's not the pain itself, it's not the original pain itself. It's us narrating the story of the pain and why we shouldn't have it and why it's a symptom of a thing that's bigger and why we have so much to worry about. Our perspective is 99% of any situation, and how we view our autonomy and our agency in that situation is key. So, in that moment of feeling anxious or worried, whatever it is, just remember this can just pass through my body and I can soothe. And I would also ask you to welcome the opposite truth to be shown to you. Like, remember, I am maybe everything is okay. Maybe everything in the rest of my day will show me an opposite, totally magical and wonderful different ending that I'm expecting right now. That is the only thing I want you to do. And I also want you to ask, how can I ground myself? What's one thing I can do to just take care of myself and ground right now? All right, the next tool, finding the meaning. If we have situations in our life where we're feeling like put upon, we're feeling like we're out of our league, we're feeling like overwhelmed, whatever it is, I just want you to take a moment, think about your highest strengths as a person. Like, what are you great at? What do you know you're really good at that you're comfortable doing? And then wrap that like bacon around a date around this situation. Like, this situation could be in service of something larger, and it could bring greater meaning than whatever you're focused on right now. So tune back into like who you are, what makes you unique and special, and ask, how can I inject that facet of myself into this situation? What is this situation here to gain from me? That's just a little reflection I wanted to offer you. Next tool, you may be keeping up, but I want you to shift the goal to thriving. So I should have come up with a catchier title in that one, but it's quite literally what it is. The skills of happiness and like being a happy person is very, very different than the skills around just like getting through it and averting misery and just being okay. And so a lot of the time, I don't think we even conceive of our goal in life to be thriving, to be like not just like keeping up, but to be like, so satiated and find our life so meaningful. And I just wanted to invite you to think about really reorienting your goal on a daily basis so that you're looking for opportunities to feel connected, to have a deeper meaning, and to also be in a state of full investment in your life and in your day. And if you are not finding that that exists, I just want to throw out the invitation to restructure your entire life around, like, be open to big sweeping changes, you know? Life is not about checking boxes, and it's not about like continuing just to be unconscious in that loop of checking boxes. So in order to like even remember that fact, we have to step back and just like reorient our goal. Like, what would be a life that brings great meaning, joy, depth, connection? All right. And the next tool is a little mantra, I guess. In the moment you're feeling anxious, I just want you to ask yourself, what can I affect? What can I affect? First things first, what is in your control? What is out of your control? What is something you can change right now? And like sometimes that means like I can take things off my calendar. I can give my body some rest. I can get into a bed and rest. If you can't think of an answer to that question, the only answer is to ground. And by ground, I mean like get into your body, get into your physical body, temperature changes, pressure on your body, breathing, meditation, that kind of thing. All right, the next tool is so out of the norm for something on this show, but it's so incredible. And I wanted to throw it out here. If this triggers you, I apologize. If you are a person who's like myself, come out of religion and been like kind of creeped out by it, know that I have an adaptation of this that's not for those people. It's called the prayer of Jabez. It is a Christian prayer. I am not a Christian, but I use this prayer every day. It is so bonkers. So I wanted to pass it on to you. I invite you to use it. I'm going to give you a version or the ways you can adapt it as it feels suited to you. So this is what I've discovered. As you know, I'm very into ritual. I'm very into the power of energy and practicing rituals that we ourselves receive on a subconscious level, how they affect major change in our life. And this is, I think, a very powerful prayer, maybe because of how many times it's been said. There is like what I would call like an energetic impact around things that have more resonance. That's why holy sites are holy. It's like there's so much more energetic resonance in them because of that just focus of energy. So I'm going to tell you my version of the prayer Jabez. If you're interested in what it is, Google the shit out of it. There's a bunch of books on it. It is something that my friend Lori Burns taught to me. It is in her new book, and she's a Jew. She uses a prayer too. It's just a good one. It's for me, it lines up with a lot of the teachings of Pam Grout, who I'm a huge fan of, and all these other modern teachers that are like, it's basically a way to really simply state all of the things that get us out of feeling superstitious and worried about asking for good things to happen in our life. So, the prayer of Jabez. I'm going to tell you the original and then I'll tell you how I adapt it. Oh Lord, please bless me indeed. Expand my territory, keep me from evil so that I might not cause pain to others. That I think is the original. This is what I would offer you as an adaptation. Oh, universe, oh, God, whatever you want to say there, please bless me indeed. Bless me indeed is an important part. And that's because it's like an overly confident, overly boastful way to expect something. And as you know, I'm constantly asking you to expect something without any fear or any like to make your body neutral in what you expect to come forth in your life. So that's kind of like what that is, in my opinion. It's like an expectation of neutrality and openness. It's just cleansing our body of fear. Bless me indeed. Expand my territory. Expand my territory in love, in work, in my confidence, in wealth, whatever it is. We want to just meditate on the thing that we are looking at goal wise. That's what this is, an active meditation. The next line. I added in, partly because Lori Burns added into hers, support me, stay with me. That's just like, I want guidance. I want to have guidance and clarity. That's what that invites. Support me, stay with me, and keep me from evil so that I not cause pain to myself or others. That's for the superstitious people out there when you're like, but I don't want it to be a bad thing. I don't want to like have this happen at the cost of my blah, blah, all of those like crazy controlling thoughts that we have when we're like imagining eventual outcomes. So that is what I want to offer you. I've been saying it every day in my mind's eye. And it for me is just like a very pure form of reminding myself to be open and expect wonderful things. It's just an energy tuning and an upresing is what I want to say, but that's not it. It's just lifting your energy and reminding you to expect great things. So wanted to throw it out to you. It's pretty cool. Some really cool stuff will happen. All right. Next tool. I should have put this earlier. It's metacognition and becoming aware of the pattern. Metacognition is just what I mean by when we are able to see ourselves from outside of ourselves. That's what I just want you to really start to practice. In the moments you find yourself being defensive, the moments you find yourself speaking a half truth, the moment you find yourself um, feeling like you are not in the same room as somebody else. Like metacognition is being able to just step out of that, see yourself, and be almost like you're studying yourself and your own responses. This is just how we can start to see what we can change about our own behavior. We can see ourselves as a responsible player in a pattern. And that is when all of the growth opens up. It's like we're no longer being like, meh, but I'm right. Instead, we're saying, how can I take ownership? What is this other person's need, unmet need, truthfully? And how can I answer that need? And it's oftentimes as soon as you answer another person's need, they meet your need right back. It's like right now we're really just in the pattern breaking stage. That's the goal. All right. And the next tool, love reality. I could have put this in every episode I've ever done. I just think it's really important for all relationships and for all situations to just love and embrace what is. Love and embrace what is. It's not wrong. It's not, it just is. Like, where do you move from here? So, when it comes to a situation with a loved one, and we're like, they can't say that though, and they can't think that, that all that does is get you stuck in that loop of like, but you can't, but you can't, but you can't. You don't move from that point. So, instead, just ask, how can just embrace and love exactly what is? And now that I have done that, how do I choose to move from here? Now, all these other possibilities and potential futures open up. Um, and okay, next tool I have for you is success equals a destination. So this could go on also in any episode. In this situation you're in right now, and in all situations, having a successful outcome is really tied to knowing the destination, like knowing where you want to go. And I know it can be really confusing and vague, but what is the goal for you? What does it encompass? What does it look like? What do you want it to be with a relationship, with yourself? Like, see that vision. Be super clear about it. Speak with authority about it and add to it each day with one conscious action. But like be crystal clear with yourself about what that looks like in your future and aim high with all things, aim high because you're already heading toward that thing, whether you could see yourself moving or not. So before I close, I want to thank my latest sponsors, Shannon, new Patreon sponsor. Thank you so much. Anyone who has the means, donations really help out the show. If you don't have the means, I totally get it. If you could just share it with somebody, it could help. That helps me as well. And you can head to yaywithme.com or you can find me on Patreon. And in closing, just remember your decisions and your actions shape your life, not your thoughts, your decisions and your actions. And so it's really important to take actions, period. Just take them. Be prepared for them to create change and be prepared to learn from that change. But it's really important to do things. So don't talk about doing things, do the things. And I invite you, if you are in a situation where you do want to create some change, take an action right now. Even if it's super tiny, take an action right now. And by that, I mean, make a phone call, go to a place, do the walk, whatever it is, buy the book, whatever thing it is, take an action. And growth is always happening, and it's so very possible. And it can happen at any age. It happens at any age all the time. So I send you my love and smile.